Welcome to Voices from the Field podcast presented by Extra Innings Softball, where the stories are real, the conversations are honest, and the game goes way beyond the field. We're bringing you insight, inspiration, and all things softball from the people shaping the sport.
Welcome, Extra Innings Softball. We are back with another Voices from the Field podcast. I am joined by a really fascinating guest. He's known as the sports doc in most of the worlds, and it transcends lots of sports, but he, I believe, has 4 teenagers. So that in and of itself kind of qualifies him to be on our podcast. He's a longtime chiropractor, and he comes from a really deep coaching background. So I'm so interested to see where this leads us. Let me introduce to you Chad Peters. He played for the SDSU, which is South Dakota State University.
That's right.
The Jackrabbits. He was a linebacker. He has published multiple books. His newest one is one for young children, which I think is really cool. And he started with the sport of softball because obviously everybody knows the sport of softball is probably the most detailed sport you can teach young children at a time with the rules and just the mechanics and everything. And the thing that I loved about the way he described this book is not only does it teach a love for the game, but a love for reading. And Lord knows with technology, that is a beautiful thing because we can say anything through technology, but children and people and humans in general learn and really kind of foster independent learning and thinking through reading. So I'm really excited about that. And then he has a coaching book for all high school coaches and youth organizations, whether it's soccer or softball, football, anything like that. And it talks about the power of a tenth of a second. And I'm kind of a sports geek retired coach. So when I hear things like that, I love to hear it because we're always looking for wisdom for our young coaches, for parents, for grandparents, for players alone to really dive into their sport. So welcome, Mr. Chad. I'm super excited. I'm going to let you fill in any blanks that I left out, and then let's just get started.
Yeah, no, I think a fantastic intro. You nailed it. Everything that you said on there is right. The coaching book came directly from my father, from my brother, who are coaches, and every year these coaches have to sit through continuing education, and they're like, there just isn't much built for us. There's, any of you guys that are high school coaches have sat through the concussion protocol now for probably 10 years. He knows when the guy coughs in the background. He knows when he does the little joke. It's a recorded deal, and he's like, you do this stuff. Why don't you start to build it to coaches and get away from like the sports medicine? And so I went to work. I went and built one of those. I just got the company off and running about a month ago, and it's so far it's been really good. It's exciting.
That's so cool. And so I'm a unique person to speak to you because all I ever wanted to do was be a high school teacher and coach. I lasted all of 2 years when I started. I lived in that white picket fence and dogs and happy family and all that stuff and kind of went right into the trenches and learned that there was a whole nother world out there. So I left that and I got sucked into college coaching, of which I said I would never do. I was in I guess it wasn't Power 4 back then, maybe Power 8 at that point in time, but I was in the Power 8. I started at South Carolina, built the Arkansas program, went to Florida, went to Virginia.
Yeah.
In the process of that, had my first child and decided I wanted to take care of my own child more than everybody else's. So retired my first time, went into the pro league, which kind of fit a little bit better because then he could be with me in the summers. And then all of a sudden he decided he wanted his own life and his own athletics. And I just knew somebody told me I had 18 summers, so I wasn't going to miss any of that. So retired again. And I went back into high school coaching. And then I came back out and all that. So with that being said, I completely understand what your father and brother were saying is, there's boxes to check from an administration standpoint. It's kind of a CYA thing, in my opinion, is to say, well,
No
we
doubt.
told them concussion protocol, we told them this, but there's not as much of the wisdom or the X's and O's for high school coaches and travel coaches to build their repertoire if it's, I don't know, practice organization or how to communicate to parents or how to do any of those things. So I'm really interested to kind of talk to you about that whole part of the power of the tenth of a second, of your philosophy behind it and how that is really applicable to what they're doing.
Well, I agree with all of what you just said. I kind of had the exact reverse thing. I'm growing up in a family of all coaches. I'm like, I'm going to be, and my wife's the same. She's from a family of coaches and teachers. Like, well, we're not going to do that. And now I can't wait to get back into that side of it because my kids are going through it and I want to do it. I think as you're talking about it, and before we'll get to the 10th of a second, but what's happening right now is there is all kinds of stuff out there for coaches, but it's got so much into like tribalism and team commitment and motivation and no one has the X's and O's anymore. Like coaches want some of that. Yeah, we want to know how to build team camaraderie. We want some of that, but we don't need five of those in one day. Somebody show us where the X's and O's go. I want my team to win some games, man. Like how do we get this player better? So the 10th of a second really is it's one chapter in the book. It's basically 5 pages, but softball did something that changed every single sport. When you watch NFL and you watch George Kittle take off his shirt in the locker room and he is a ripped, lean stud. He looked nothing like my generation. My generation was college football. How beefy can we get? I played linebacker at 242 pounds. That would never happen anymore. We'd be 218 and we'd be speedy. So you've been in the college game for a long time. Arizona State, about 2008 and 2009, said, we're going to recruit a bunch of these little speedy girls. And they started putting people on base. At one point, they had 3 slap hitters in a rotation. I mean, it hadn't really been done, and all of a sudden they're playing, in Oklahoma year after year. And that, in my opinion, changed everything about sports. And I bring it back all the time with, if we're going to teach these coaches what is the best metrics for athletes to get better, we have to just get away from the 1990s version of it's how much you weigh, it's how much you squat, it's how much you deadlift. And let's start getting back to the metrics that win. And in every sport, it's speed. Other than powerlifting, it's speed. And a tenth of a second in softball is 2 feet. So look back through your career, how many safes and outs were happened within 2 feet? You change that metric, you change a sport. And that's really the basis of the whole thing. When I started diving into how can I make my young teenagers better athletes, I really had to step back away from, okay, here's the dogma, and then here's what's really working. And it all comes down to speed. And then one step before speed is like, all right, how do we work speed? You have to have some mobility in the 3 big engines. So I want you guys to know that, especially you got, tons of super softball fans. Softball changed all sports and it's continuing to kind of push the way, but speed is everything. And you get it. And it's been really cool listening to some of your podcasts over the last week on some of the other guys in the game and how they're teaching. We can no longer put these girls into situations where this is what I'm comfortable as a coach. This is the drills I like. This is the way I like to stand. And we're getting more into like, what's the preference for these kids? Well, this stuff just goes along with all of it. And that's really what the entire book was about is let's not teach these coaches, here's the ninth and 10th metric. Let's start focusing on the first 3 and make some differences. Because this stuff's all happening at the elite levels. It doesn't need to take 20 years to trickle down. This stuff that was happening with the speed demons in softball, that was when I was a kid, like let's upgrade our systems.
Yeah, and I can even take it farther back because I'm even way before 2008. Mike Kendray at the University of Arizona, when I was at Fresno State, we would play against each other all the time. And Larry Ray is the gentleman that I think you can give credit to for the slapping and the speed and what that is. They took Arizona from virtually nothing in a program in the late 80s into the 90s with nothing but snappers. Matter of fact, I had him on a podcast not too long ago, and we were kind of reliving some things. And I literally told him, I'm like, you only ever beat me one time in the 4 years that we ever played. And I said, and it was on 3 hits that never got more than 4 feet from home plate. And we lost
Right.
1-0 in extra innings. And it really is that speed. I mean, our field is so small that speed can expose weaknesses of a team really quickly. And I love that thought process, even relating it to my own daughter. She's committed to go play at Arkansas. She'll sign in November. And
Saw that.
speed is not something that I gave her genetically. So I cannot say I just bless you with speed. So we got her involved in a sports performance training. She's strong as an ox. So she still does that really heavy lifting, but we took her to Matt Woods with the sports
Yeah.
preferences, and we learned whether she was aerial or terrestrial or a combination of both. And it's so interesting for somebody that all I've done is coach in my entire career to hear new terms, and I'm just geeked out about it. Like, I'm wanting to learn, I'm wanting to hear it. And once you see these things, you can't unsee them. Like, one of the very simple things I did is just said, cross your arms to the group. And some went left over right, some went right over left. But when you do it and they say, okay, switch it, you almost have to think about it. So now all of a sudden you realize how your brain works. And I love what you're saying, because I do think that's such a huge challenge to coaches nowadays. First of all, let's talk about the youth coaches. Most of them do it as a hobby, do it as a way to be able to just spend time with their kids, do it out of force, necessity, whatever it is. And so it's not paying their bills. So when I realized that, we've got to find ways. And I think when you think about your book or ways that they can sit there, if you're going to spend the time doing it, investing that time, then let's make it easier for you. So it's going to take some time of investment with that. But I totally get it from the youth perspective of, I'm coaching a 12U team. Like, how do I make this the best for them? And what's crazy to me is that's the most transformational period in an athlete's life. Like, so some of these parents and some of these players are subjected to the luck of the draw of who they get as a coach. What is their knowledge? What is that? So I would love to hear
100%.
that from you.
And that's where I'm trying to go with this, because I also coach youth soccer. That wasn't my sport.
Yeah.
Right. So I, just like you, I've started at U8, I bring up to U9, and I'm like, I'm watching all these other coaches. I'm like, this stuff that we're doing, that everyone's kind of doing the same, it doesn't really pay off on the field. This isn't really making a difference. I get we're doing it, but we're just doing it because everybody else is. So even going back to this idea of speed, I think every coach kind of gets that now. That's not a mystery, and we're thinking that we need to make our athletes fast. But just going out there and running isn't going to make them fast. Taking a class and saying it. So the idea is kind of like, let's break down the things that will actually get to wins. And what's cool about the system is I'm not changing the way anyone coaches. This stuff's just built to fit into your system. It's more, what order do you put it in? When I go and talk to high school coaches, they've had me go and say, hey, you've got 1 hour to tell us everything you've got. They end up hating that seminar. That's just too much. It's like trying to drink out of a fire hose. When I bring it down to, like, here's the order you put it in, and just watch the change, it's instantaneous. It's kind of like you said with that stuff with Matt. I'm a guy that is like, I feel like my finger is on the pulse of what's happening in the sports performance world, from the elite levels, from the Olympians down to, the NFL. I worked with Major League Baseball. I worked with the NFL. I pay attention to what's happening there. And when I heard his stuff and said, oh, I haven't heard of this before, I mean, you can bet it got my attention. And
Yeah.
stuff like that, the degree that helps it, and if you can get it in front of these kids when they're younger, so it's not so strange, it's still unreal to me to show up at a youth basketball game and how they warm up, or to look at soccer and they just kick the ball back and forth. And that's kind of we're going to do 20 minutes of drills. It teaches these kids to hate the sport. We have to do it in a way that isn't just like monotony and grind. And like, no 12-year-old should get back with practice and say, I hate that. That's a sure way to not get kids into sports. And, softball has been lucky because the USA is the game. I mean, the USA, everyone's following what we're doing. But I think it's also our responsibility to keep pushing the envelope on how far it goes. The soccer world's the exact opposite. It really stands out because we're the ones that are falling behind. We have all the top athletes. We have all the skills, all the training, all the facilities. Why aren't we winning? How come we're not the number one team? Well, there's a lot of issues that go into that I think are completely fixable if we can just not make the sport so tough on kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you think about the babies, the 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And I constantly say to coaches, how much time are you spending training this? How much time are you spending this? How much time are you spending this? When have you ever taught them how to run?
Yep.
You know,
100%.
they kind of like look at me and I'm like, think
Yep.
about the last time you've actually broken down how to run. We spend all this time on the swing, all this time on how to throw, how
Yep.
to catch a ball, and how to run. And I said, and softball's not the only one. It's across the thing. We just think you can walk, therefore you can
Well,
run. And it's not.
like you said, 4-foot hits are what got you. Like,
Yeah.
you can spend hours on hitting. What ended up getting you in a game was these little dinky balls and someone got on base. it's unreal. And then I think the next big phase I see happening is, especially in the high school and the youth world, is okay, we realize we got to teach these kids how to run. Well, now it's an hour process. Like that isn't gonna work. That doesn't fit into your, when do you have an hour? You might only have an hour for practice. You definitely can't spend an hour on running. It's a natural process, and it's just there's better ways to do this stuff that doesn't take up any of your time as a coach. You're
Yeah.
going to spend time doing hamstring stretches and ridiculous things anyway. Let's just maximize your time so you get something out of it. And if you can ingrain it in these kids when they're younger, it's just the performance is exponential. It's unbelievable. There's, I don't know if you've heard of the feed the cats guy, Tony Holler. He was kind of laughed at 5 years ago, and now he's the deal. Anyone that's actually put his little 9 minute and 5 second systems to test are like, oh my God, like we were spending 15 minutes on warm up. This guy does it in 9 minutes and it's times 10. I mean, there's just cool stuff out there. And I'm not inventing any of this. I'm just trying to help coaches be aware of, here's the stuff that's out there.
Right.
I wrote Matt after I got off the podcast with you, and I'm like, I need to know this because that should have been in this book. I just
Yeah.
hadn't heard of it yet. And if I haven't heard of it when I'm out there actively searching for it, well, none of the coaches have heard of it either. I mean, you almost have to get lucky. So, yeah, awesome for having me on here, because I'm trying to do exactly what he's doing. Is just like, there's all these systems that once you guys are aware of it, it's going to fit into your existing coaching automatically. I've got a kid just behind you. He's a senior in high school right now, 6'6". He can jump through the moon. He's a stud. But he's now at the point, and you get it with going into college. Everybody that's getting looked at for college is a stud. So
Absolutely.
what's the things that can separate him and make him kind of stand up? And that kind of stuff is really interesting to me, because I believe it. I mean, I work with a college team here. We've got one shoe company. That's who everyone has to fit in those shoes. Well, as the chiropractor, not as the sports guy, but as the chiropractor, when they come to me and like, my feet hurt, well, I've got a solution for that, but it doesn't fit that system. And I think that's the next big wave that's coming, obviously, is that
Absolutely.
athletes need to be comfortable. It shouldn't take until they're professionals.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. People can say a lot of negative things about NILs and all the things that are out there, but those are some of the good things that are coming out of it. Is we're not just saying, "Hey, we wear Nike, we wear these yellow shoes and you've got to put them on." It doesn't matter if you're wide or narrow, if you like stiff surfaces or soft surfaces. I think it's ginormous, and I
Yeah.
definitely would tell you, if you don't get your kid up there right now to chat to Matt, you're crazy, because the things that he does is unbelievable with it. But the thing that I'd love to hear your comment based on all the training that you've done as a chiropractor and stuff. The one thing that really started me in this deep dive in the last 3 to 4 years of my kid is, obviously she was starting to show promise. I got myself to get her to a place called Base Sports Performance here in Hernando where we live. You pay out the wazoo for it, but I can
Yep.
tell you exponentially how incredibly powerful it was. When she went there, she's always been a strong kid, but they took her strength in such a much more direct method. It wasn't the old fashioned, well, it's 3 sets of 10 and do
That's
this
right.
stuff. And they took it based on where they saw her weaknesses and strengths. So I had always seen how strong she was. She always looked great in a bathing suit, but I never saw it transfer onto the field. And
That's
so
right.
what I watched them do, because one of the things that I had said to her is that she seems to have some fairly decent speed. I didn't give it to her. Maybe my husband did, but I never saw him in sports. So I can't give him that credit just completely. And I'm like, but I would really love to see if we can get her faster. So from home to first, she was a 3.1 as a righty. She hit with pretty good power. So sometimes she got to jog 60 feet and turn left. But I said, obviously, if you can increase her power, I don't care about her speed because she can jog more. But I would like her to be able to turn some singles into doubles, doubles into triples, be able to steal bases. And
Game
she's a
changers.
catcher. So she was a 3.1. In less than 6 months. They took her to a 2.85. And when
And it
I'm saying
changes
that,
everything about her. Right.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden Arkansas starts calling. Like, that's the stuff that it takes, because that's who you're comparing with. Yeah. Eh,
absolutely. And
yeah.
when I'm saying that is she got bigger and stronger. So the bigger she got, the faster she got. And in this old coach's brain, those things didn't compute, because it was
Yep.
like the fast girls are skinny and here, and then you've got your power. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there going, my kid is ripped and big and strong and hits home runs, but she's stealing bases now. And she's
Yeah.
beating out infield hits that she never did before. And as well as I do, is that equates to numbers. Numbers is money. All of those
Oh,
different
it
things.
is.
So it's just a really interesting thing to do. Does your book
I
address some
think
of the
that's it, but I also think sometimes, and it worked for your daughter, awesome, and it's great, but I think sometimes strength it overshadows all the other stuff. So I would say that when she's doing that training in Orlando, obviously she's getting stronger. The strength is part of it, but they're also fixing weaknesses. They're making
Oh,
the body move better, and that's what really is going to make the difference for her, because the world is kind of stuck in this 1990s idea of, if something's tight, I want to stretch it. If something's injured, I need to strengthen it. And it's just that stuff has been outdated a little bit. So I like the idea that they're doing strength. And the next step I would take with you is say, like, it wasn't just strength they were fixing on your daughter.
oh,
They're
no
making
doubt.
stuff move the right way. And I'll tell you, if when coaches come to me and they're like, "Hey, I need the 30-second version. I need the Instagram version." I'm like, "It's more mobility. If you really want to make a difference." And here's how I'll tell coaches, and I'll tell your listeners too. In the 1980s, when teams weren't lifting weights, or some were and some weren't, it was a dramatic change if you took teams that were not strong and made them stronger. But since that time, everyone's pretty much strong. My high school kid is strong. My high school daughters are strong. So increasing their strength from quite, let's say, like 2x to 4x, it does help, but it might not get the same metrics that you can if you can make them move better. You know what I mean? Once you figure
Absolutely.
out how they move, especially as a chiropractor, I'm always kind of stuck with that label because everyone's like, "Oh, you're a spinal guy," and I'm not. I didn't like the chiropractic theory when I was going through school. Our body is basically three big engines. It's the hip, the ankle, the shoulders. And I don't know those guys in Orlando, but that's my background. My background was I was a personal trainer. I was very much on the performance side. I'm like, when you start getting those three engines moving the right way, and you get the butt and the back muscles and the calf accentuating that movement, now write your ticket. That's where the speed comes. That's where the power comes. That's where the vertical jump comes. That's where you don't get injured. You have less ACLs. All the stuff that gives coaches more W's. And that's really the heart of it all. Those companies that are coming out, the reason they charge like they do is because it's special. That's just not what you're getting at the high school phases right now. And that's really what I'm being hired to do. I'll go in there and they're not going to pay me what they pay your guys in Orlando. So they're going to be like, just give us the basics, give us the tips. I'm like, well, she doesn't need to be trying to squat 400 pounds anymore. I would like to see her get these 90-90s going in her hips. Now get her back out there, see what happens. And bam, now her strength can be utilized. And that's really, I don't know your daughter. I would love to watch her run. And I think within seconds, I'd be like, that's what's going on. But what she's really doing is God's given her a gift of physical athleticism and strength. And now she's figuring out how to use it all the right way, which is
Yeah.
which is really cool.
And I'd love for you, like, this will kind of be fun for you. So it's Hernando, not Orlando, but that's okay.
Oh,
Doesn't
Hernando. Okay.
matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I'm
There's
sure
some
they
good
have
ones
it
in
down there
Orlando
too.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they have it down there too. But we've gotten ourselves in with a Dr. Vic here. He's a chiropractor. And he's cupping her and he's scraping her and he's, doing the different things and the wiggle boards. So the thing that I just want my listeners to get from you and hear just from my own personal experience, because that's the easiest way to do it, is, being an elite athlete is not just the sport. It is the rest. It's the nutrition. It's the recovery. It's the movement days. Like, people are like, how often does she work out? I'm like, 5 days a week. And they're like, she's in the gym 5 days a week. I'm like, yes, but it's not all lifting. It's
That's right.
movement.
It's
It's
not an hour and a half of brutalizing your body. It's different
no,
stuff.
and
Yeah.
everything about what they do with her is about efficiency. She
For
now just
sure.
has her own person who lives in Austin, Texas, that's training her. And he does it all via just back and forth on the phone. She sends video. And truth be known, I think the biggest gift that my daughter gave to herself is she fell in love as much with the gym. And I say the gym, it's not just the gym. It can be outside sprint training,
Performance. Yeah.
but just the performance side of it. And I think the reason she did is she got into it early and saw immediate results. And so it became almost like an obsession. Like, how far can I go? How much can I do? And then all of a sudden she's getting recruited. Then she's committed and then she's getting ready to sign. And it's, I'm going as a freshman. I'm going to get on that field. Like, what do I
Yeah.
have to do to get on the
Love it. Love it. It's very much, it's cool that a chiropractor is kind of going that direction, because I think a lot of us that get into athletic training, chiropractic, some of the sports physical therapies and physio, we have this idea we want to make athletes better. I want to make them perform higher, and then we get into real life and like, hey, can you pop my neck? And I'm like, that's Instagram, man. That's not what we want to do. So you're seeing my field and athletic training really kind of taking it by the reins and saying, let's push this.
Yes.
There's no reason we can't do what the guys at the professional levels are doing. We just have to you almost have to step away from the chiropractic thing. And if it comes down to like, hey, why did I start this second business? Why did I write the book? Why am I so adamant of getting into a different career, kind of like you did through your career, retire and start something new? It's because I'm not getting it with the chiropractic. Someone comes in there and they says, hey, I sprained my ankle, also making me faster today. Like they don't kind of jive together. You need to have them as two separate things. My son's going through the exact same path. I mean, of all the things that changed his athletic ability, it was a little uh, Instagram video of Matt V, and he takes his shirt off and he's jacked and he drinks a smoothie. He's like, "You want to know how I'm so awesome?" Like here, and he just got a nutrition side. And once he started experimenting with nutrition, even as a seventh and eighth grade tall kid that kind of ran like a puppy dog and pieces went everywhere, he could just see it translating. Now I'm an eighth grader and I can dunk a ball. I couldn't do that. He was winning cross country meets, and he's like, "I'm not a cross country guy." But the nutrition changed his life. And I think, I do a lot of lectures for college and high school kids on careers. And, most of the time the colleges want me to come in and talk about being a chiropractor. I'm like, look, that's not where it's at. Where it's at is the sports performance world, right? Like there's tech, there's medical. Sports performance is one of the top 3 careers on the planet, and it's going through a complete change. So what a cool experience for your daughter.
Oh,
Not only does it work in real life, but after softball, she's got a way to continue her love for this sport with something she already knows just like jives with her, man. And that's
yeah.
that's definitely where my love is. I mean, I absolutely geek out about the performance stuff. And when I see it, I'm like, why in my book I call it a generational knowledge transfer. Why does this take a generation to trickle down?
Absolutely.
This stuff, we're on the internet age. The information's right there if you know what to ask for or what to look for. So I love it. She's only gonna take it up. I mean, you know what
Yeah.
happens when you get to college. Now you've got time.
Yeah,
If she's
absolutely.
doing
That's
this
my
stuff
fault.
as a high school kid, oh my God. Once you've got an extra couple hours, sky's
Right.
the limit. It's gonna be awesome.
Well, and it's really funny because a lot of people and I'm just speaking, like I said, from her mother's standpoint or even a coach's standpoint, because I remember when I was playing, I was always working. I was always doing that. And I didn't even
Yeah.
know what I didn't know back then, but it always fascinated me. And I watch her do it. And so many of the people around her is like, oh, well, it just comes easy to her. And I'm like, you have no idea
Yep.
she's doing.
But
It doesn't
but
come
that's a true mark of a professional. Make it look easy. They don't see all the other stuff. I mean, my favorite line out of that book, and more than likely I stole it from somebody. I don't think I'm this smart to come up with it. But my favorite line is there are so many things that elite level athletes do that make them not amateur.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are boring. They're repetitive. They're just something you get up and do every day. But that's the difference. It's not that it's easy for your daughter. It's not that she's more gifted than any. She's probably got some of that, but she knows how to utilize it better. The
Absolutely.
rest of them are sitting around and saying, "Well, I wish I was that good." You can hope all you want. Hope's a really crappy treatment plan. The way you want to get better is go to work and so most of these high school kids kind of get that. I'll work harder. I'll work harder. I'll try harder, but they're working on the wrong things. Like
Absolutely.
now you got to figure it out. And like, we don't have 7 hours to do this stuff. Once you make it to the NFL, of course, now you've got a whole day to go in there. That's your job. You can really work on this stuff. So can I extract the minimum effective dose? What's this thing that's 5% of the effort, but gives you 95% of the results? That's the stuff you got to be working on because that's the stuff that's just going to take you to a whole new level. And the fact that your daughter's found that, the fact that, my kids aren't going to listen to me. I'm no expert for my own kids, but the fact that they're starting to kind of realize, okay, there's different stuff out there. And then to see it in these high school coaches that are our age or a little bit younger and are kind of stuck like, well, yeah, no, I really want my kids to get better. Well, wanting isn't good enough. Here's what you apply to make it happen. So, man, it's exciting, isn't it? I mean, I've got kids your same age, and it's exciting to see it stick and to see it work and then to get the results from it. I mean, it's just so rewarding.
Absolutely, because the word I think of when I hear us talk is I think of the word of efficiency. We're looking
100%, the
at
whole
efficiency.
thing. Yep.
Yeah,
Chapter
and it's
2 is called minimum effective dose. How do you become the most efficient?
what
Because you're not a pro. Yep.
absolutely.
100%.
And it's efficiency in sports performance, it's efficiency in training, it's efficiency in skills, it's efficiency in motor preferences. It really is that level. And you can determine at what level you do it, because if it's more social, that's great, but you should still look at the way that your body moves so that it is more fun and you can continue doing something you love well beyond high school and stuff. It can become a lifelong love and passion.
Carrie, I'm going to give you one of the things that I did, and I'm not trying to like pitch the whole thing, but one of my favorite images I made was a little chart like a speedometer, and it's kind of like everything in life works like this. There's the JV level, there's the varsity level, there's a college level, there's an upper university level, and there's a pro level. I don't care if it's how you come home from work every day. I don't care if it's how you step on the softball field. You figure out what level you want to be at. That's the efficiency, right? Like I can do this as the JV level, but over there's the varsity level. It takes half a second more to just click that in your brain and say, I want to be the varsity level. When you figure
Absolutely.
that out, what's the next level? And that to me is something that I've adopted to my life, and it's made me better as an adult that's not trying to get a scholarship, that's not trying to get a contract to go pro. It definitely works for these kids. There's different levels of stuff. And if you think what you're doing is good enough, you're oblivious.
Absolutely.
The article I wrote this morning before we started the podcast was just about when you're bored and you've got this 5 minutes, we all tend to pick up our telephone. Why don't you just let it sit for a second? Because there's processing that happens in the back of your brain, kind of like a computer in the background. And when those synapses start connecting, magic is happening. If you don't give your brain that time to process. So your daughter goes to a training session and she does all that work, she gets it all in there. Now just don't pick up the phone. Just for 10 minutes, just sit. You don't have to think about what you did. Just let your brain figure out what's the most efficient, what's the best way to compile all that stuff together, and it's a whole next level. That's a professional thing. People
Absolutely.
don't get that until they get to the Olympics. They don't get that until they make the professional levels. They've never heard of it.
Yeah.
Why? It's that easy. Just don't pick up your phone for 5 minutes. Magic will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really incredible in the next like step that I keep telling people about is not only is it efficiency, but it's also what is your intention. Like just
Y-
don't go to the batting cage to go swing a bat. I mean, if you're
mhm.
going to do that, it's just for fun and you're playing. But if you're going to try to get better, what is your intention in when you're swinging? Like, what are you intentionally trying to work on at that moment? Don't go through
Yep.
the motion because it's wasted time, wasted rep, and wasted damage to your body. Like, let's make,
That's the college coaching you coming out to just go take 10 cuts with no intent. You might as well be mowing the grass in the outfield. You
yes.
need to have the intent and step it up there. And I don't see youth coaches saying that. I don't see high school coaches saying that. I don't see them just on the way out of the locker room having a poster. What are you trying to do today? Just
Mhm.
pause for 10 seconds and say it. And if the kid can't do it himself, well, it's the coach's idea. Here's what today's practice is for. I talked about it last week. I was doing a seminar for one of the high schools. If you're going to make your kids run at the end of practice, first, I think it's a terrible idea. But second, you better tell them why you're doing it. Is it punishment? Is it because you're trying to do conditioning? Like what are you doing that for? Because just telling them that, you're going to get better results than all right, guys, get on the line, let's run. Like you should have an intent. I think it's going to come down to coaches are the ones that are going to have to do this. But these kids, once they're aware of it, it's going to stick for some of them. Just like my son, just like your daughter, just that whole idea of intent. Most of them have never heard of it. Once
Mhm.
they hear that, it kind of clicks. But it's a huge, like you're talking all the same things, and it's no coincidence that's happened. I'm not a smart guy. All this stuff that I've compiled for my website and my book and stuff, it was from talking to coaches. I
Mhm.
have these conversations, they have it. I'm like, yeah, that's genius. Someone needs to write that down. Why
Yeah,
why do we
absolutely.
each have to figure that out through our careers? Somebody write this down. And I'm like, all right, I'll write that stuff down.
Absolutely, and I think that's what's so cool about coaching is very rarely I don't even know if I've ever come up with an original thought of myself. I've just always stolen or borrowed or used other people's and kinda, like, modified it to what I saw working and then
Yep.
take it to I constantly talk to young coaches about, go and buy yourself a big blob of clay and stick it in front of you, and just keep it spinning. Make it tall, make it short, make it holy, make it all these different things, add things, delete things, do different things so that it becomes yours and it makes you unique. But I give lessons. Obviously, people pay me an obscene amount of money to give lessons. And I always say to them, I'm like, you don't have to come to me every week. Like you coming every week, what if you just came every other week and you used that money and invested it over here to be more efficient or intentional in performance in this? And it makes me sad because I see a lot of these young kids that come and I'm thinking, your mom and dad just need to play catch with you. Just go play catch, go figure it out. Like you're 8 years old. You don't need me. You need to play catch,
Yep.
And so, but I think we do live in a day and an age where technology has taken it. Everybody's seeing the stuff out there and time is of the essence. Parents are working longer hours. Everything costs more money. And so many times I want to say, not only does your kid need to be more efficient, intentional, so do you as a parent.
It's
And I want to
perfect.
give parents that power to like,
It,
when did you give that right up to other people? Take
yeah.
it back and take control.
It's so unbelievable that you bring that up because I'll be doing a lot of these podcasts. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff on different tours and seminars, and no one talks like that. That comes from a true coach. It's 100% evident. But all the cool stuff that you see on social media that you see the pros doing, they've got to that point. That's also what sells entertainment. But that's not what they're doing that sets them apart. The stuff that they're doing is playing catch in the backyard with their dad and mom.
Yes.
That's the stuff. And that doesn't get mentioned because it's boring. It's the same with my chiropractic degree. It's the same with the rehab stuff I teach. It's the same with the performance stuff. It's these small little steps, not the super cool John Wick stuff that makes them pros. That doesn't work unless you have the foundation, unless you have the love, unless you have the intent, unless it's fun. Going out there and just doing repeat stuff is terrible, man. It's the first book I ever wrote was about parenting. It had nothing to do with sports or anything. Why do I have a lawn service for someone to mow my yard? Because my kid said, "Hey, Dad, can we play catch?" That first day that I had to decide, do I mow the yard or do I play catch? That was tough. That was tough. But what really matters? Yeah, no, I love the path you're on with this stuff. I think it's funny you and I haven't met before because we're
You know,
very like-minded on that stuff. But I, I
that's
I
awesome.
can't agree with you more. And
That's
it's
so
it's
cool.
crazy to get in front of a group of 100 high school coaches and you bring something like this up, and it's like the light bulbs go off. They
Yes.
haven't thought of that because they're in the same trap the kids are. What's the cool stuff? What's the new stuff? What's Steph Curry doing? I need to make my shot look like that. Like, yeah, Steph Curry, man. He spent
Yeah.
a lot of time developing this. I think you're maybe looking at the freak of nature instead of looking at what is the other 90% of the guys in the NBA that you don't know their names and what are they doing? Because you
Yeah.
can probably pick up some tips for your kid from that.
Absolutely. I love that. I love this afternoon or this morning, whether you're just sharing all these different things. I definitely think this will be the first of many different stuff. And I might even like say, hey, we need to get you to write a few articles for extra innings softball to even make it more targeted with that. Do you have
Great.
any closing thoughts or ideas for our audience?
No, I just think these ideas that we've gone at, take a second. When you're done with the podcast, turn it off. Don't turn on the next one. Pause it for a little bit. Let some of these things sit.
Yeah.
It's obvious things that are right there. If you need some help, great. I've got a book. It's way cheaper than all the seminars or paying for us to come in person with it. You've got that. Uh, Look at your stuff on Instagram, find some stuff, but then take a second to kind of think like what's really going on here. Yeah, no, I love where this went. This is what I kind of was hoping it was going to be, and what a
Absolutely.
what a great session. You made my morning better as well.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Excuse me. And in the article below, we will make sure that we share where people can get all of your information, your books, all that good stuff. What a pleasure. And I look forward to working with you again. Thank you so much.
It was great, Carrie. Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Voices from the Field, presented by Extra Inning Softball. Don't forget to follow us on social media, subscribe to us on Spotify, and visit our website at extrainningsoftball.com for more stories, rankings, and updates from around the game. We'll see you guys next week.